presently realizing just how much lighting really isn't going to work in this video. It's just not going to happen. It's a dreary day and no. Content with the fact that I'm going to look even more like a ghost today, hey munchies, it's the Gamer Untamed, and finally I am doing my review of the wonderful Life is Strange. So sit back and enjoy, and let's go on with the review.
And there she is, a lovely young woman.
Life is Strange tells the story of 18-year-old Max Caulfield, a budding photographer and the manipulator of time itself. As Max, the players are able to navigate through the linear pathway that is Arcadia Bay, being able to interact with classmates, teachers, and any other individuals that you may come across within the town through a choice and consequence narrative system. This is typical to many periodic narratives such as Telltale's The Wolf Among Us and The Walking Dead. However, unlike these typical Telltale games, the decisions within Life is Strange are not set in stone. The players are able to experience many different decision options and pathways through Max's ability to rewind time. Split into 5 interconnected episodes spanning over the period of a week, Life is Strange explores the themes of time travel through parallel and adjacent worlds. However, the crux and the core of the narrative circulates around the relationship that is formulated between Chloe and Max, and how friendship really is the pivotal essence of this narrative. Set in the fictional town of Arcadia Bay, Max discovers on the way to unearth the truth about the murder of Rachel Amber that the sheer gravity of her paranormal powers have the ability to cause monumental destruction to Arcadia Bay. Generally, I prefer to steer away from video games that include fanciful elements into a realistic genre. However, Life is Strange has become my most recommended and adored video game that I've played this year. It's tear-jerking, gut-wrenching, and the emotional development of the characters is its true strength. That is what I believe really has gravitated audiences and players to this game. Just like Telltale, Life is Strange functions like a typical adventure game, enabling the players to interact with almost everything within the game. And for some reason, you just feel like you have to read into every irrelevant object like an analyst. Although people might not enjoy being able to interact with everything in a video game, it might not be your cup of tea, but I somehow found even watching Max brush her teeth really fascinating and exciting. Before I go into how much I loved the game and how amazing it is, I have to talk about the game's flaws, because this game does harbour flaws. For example, the urban slang is unlike any jargon I would ever audibly hear in modern and contemporary language. Seriously, even in the captions it says cool with a K and biatch with a B-E-A-T-C-H. I have never heard that. There are so many cringeworthy moments that are directly correlated to the poor colloquial speech. And seriously, go fuck yourselfie.
What a lame gimmick. Why don't you go fuck yourselfie?
Victoria, you're an absolute cow. That was one aspect of the entire game. I'm like, what are you writers thinking? Who would say that? Although the narrative does essentially revolve around the interactions and development between the relationship of Max and Chloe, there are precisely 6 other secondary or main characters that are featured within the game. And I was astounded at the lack of association between them, particularly Warren, who I thought had this cardinal role in his possible love interest relationship with Max. And then Kate had a big role, but then she kind of just drifted away. Same with Victoria. They all kind of had their moments and then were disregarded, especially in the last episode, which was really disappointing. In spite of the plot of Life is Strange being twisted and warped in a really beguiling and energizing way, there were elements within the episodes where the lack of reality and the failure for the developers to establish this sound basis for sanity acted as the downfall of the video game. This is precisely and distinctly noticeable in episode 5, Polarized, where the narrative kind of becomes this contorted mess and mash of all these elements in the game that have already been rehashed, and it just becomes messy and chaotic and not in a good way. By the time the players have reached the final episode, Max's abilities to rewind time have been reduced to nothing more than a gimmick. Her powers are no longer special, as they haven't been restricted by the creators by any means. And this kind of results into a situation where you can always go back on your decisions. And that makes it really annoying, because I tried to play the game through the whole thing without having to rewind unless it was necessary. Although the environment and the atmosphere of the game in the final episode was unnerving and confronting and frightening, and I was sweating throughout the entire thing, but that stealth sequence was so unnecessary. No, I don't want to be reinforced about the necessity of Max's powers, because I don't want to have to rewind every time I get hit with a flashlight. The game isn't about stealth. I don't know why they even bothered with it, because it just made it frustrating. The prestige associated with her powers had long gone by then, and it was just reinforced through this stealth sequence. Now I just have to whine about a few elements here. One, what the F was with Kate's hair? She actually looks like she has a bird's nest on her head. I don't know who designed the hair of these characters, but they all look like they come from the 1920s. Like, even with Victoria's bob, she's not hot with it. I mean, it's not a bob, her pixie cut. Is she 30? Now onto the good stuff. Within each distinct and sovereign episode, the audience are allowed to delve into what seemed to behave like this 5-part television drama. Immediately within episode 1, Chrysalis, it inaugurates the establishment of the narrative and the setting through this bright and colourful graphic novel aesthetic design, which was fantastic to witness. I loved how the tones and the colour palettes of the environment really ranged from spring effervescence to bleak and harsh spaces, as evidenced in the claustrophobic environments, such as in the photography dungeon. Very creepy space. And the lyrical and instrumental soundtracks were unique and individual, steering away from the brutalized and stereotypical pop culture. This individual music was very representative of Max and allowed the players to engage in who her character really was. The teenage dilemmas within the narrative really resonate with adolescents like me. With your boyfriend issues and your friendship issues and whether you fit in or not, definitely realistic and authentic. I also loved Max and Warren's kissing scene at the end. If you chose it, you didn't have to, but I thought, guys, you were so adorable and you actually never got to see this ape movie. Swoon, it was adorable, but there should have really been more romantic interaction between them available if you were to choose it, of course. And I absolutely loved how you could bond with the characters and feel the intensity that they feel and the sadness that they felt. That scene between Chloe and Max when they actually discovered that Rachel was dead broke my heart. I bawled. The music, the voiceover in that sequence was the most powerful I've ever witnessed within the game. And I was in tears, I had tissues, it ruined my entire face. The feels, guys, the feels. The strength of Life is Strange undeniably relies with the creator's ability to capture the essence of the conveyance of character emotions and development between relationships and the trifles associated with friendship. I loved being able to identify and envy Max and Chloe's relationship, and I loved that the story didn't focus around mystic time travel or boy-crazed frenzies and crushes conventional with that of the typical teen drama. Episode 4, Darkroom, spared no expense in the emotional department, people, generating anxiety and immense dread in the players who, by this state, are able to resonate and identify with Max and her emotions, especially when she has to comfort Chloe in lieu of unearthing Rachel Amber's remains. Oh my god, this scene broke my heart. I'm pretty sure it was one of the last scenes in that episode, and it just tore my heart and soul apart into little bitty pieces. I was crying. I couldn't even contain myself. That scene was just, I have no words. It was amazing. And it was, I don't have words, I actually don't. I just loved that scene. Oh, how there were some really grotesquely uncomfortable moments within this narrative. The play's realization that it isn't Nathan Prescott who's the problem, nor is it David Madsen who are Max's ultimate enemies, but her dedicated and attractive photography teacher, Mark Jefferson, who was the psychotic butcher within this story. I would love to just go back to episode 1 so I can berate and scold him without having to feel terrified in Max's position that she was going to get raped in his pedophilic photography dungeon. It was the most creepiest shit I have ever witnessed in my life. Actually, not as creepy as Heavy Rain, but it was pretty up there, especially since he just... No, it was nice and it was weird. I hadn't seen anything beforehand, mind you, so it was a huge shock to me. Legit thought Nathan was just going to murder me. Hey, props to the photography teacher. Weird fetish. Life is Strange paints this emotive and tender watercolor portrait, constructing a vibrant image and literary representation of the struggles associated with a young woman in search of her identity and selfhood. The narrative is a majestic piece of writing, as evidenced between the authentic relationship between Chloe and Max. Their relationship and friendship is the one constant in a narrative that is riddled with covert secrecies and mysticism. In spite of those aggravating stealth sequences which generated a mountain of sweat and trepidation, and of those other minor errors that had been frequented in the narrative, the fetch quests I found were intriguing as it stipulated an insight into the characters within the video game, and although episode 5 really didn't reaffirm players of the beauty associated with this crafted narrative, Don't Nod do have the opportunity to craft a second series that can either regain play respect or plummet themselves into a rabbit hole. I vote for the former because I still believe that this video game is a gem. I really do, and that is why I am going to give it, where am I going to put it? Here maybe? A 9 out of 10. I really love this video game. I hope you did too if you played it. If you haven't, you need to go and buy the whole season pass because it is brilliant despite its flaws. And that's my review. I hope you enjoyed it. I won't be around for the next 2 weeks as I am really kind of preparing for my Year 12 exam. So I'll be back in 2 to 3 weeks. One of those. Once they're finished, I'll be back. Please chuck this video a like if you enjoyed it. Leave your comments and thoughts down below. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this game if you've played it, or if I perhaps have persuaded you to play this game, which would be really fantastic. Don't forget to share and subscribe, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye!